Hello, welcome back to my art studio. We finally got the place painted and my wonderful husband installed and built this shelf behind me. So I'm really happy about that. I can't wait to get the place more organized and figured out. But until then, we will still be doing some videos and some lessons. Today's is a beginner brush drawing practice session. So if you yet haven't looked at my introduction to brush drawing video, definitely check that out first. That's a great overview on exactly what brush drawing is. And this would be a good next step. So we'll work on some basic strokes. We'll go in different directions. But before that, remember how I was swatching out my new colors? Okay, so I have a few more that are down at the bottom. And you'll get to see exactly what happened to create these colors. But my main one that I'll be working with and showing you today is this quinacridone magenta. And that is this one by Daniel Smith. It's quinacridone magenta. If you want to mix these later, I'm using a phthalo blue as a cyan pigment, and I'm also using Winsor & Newton's Winsor Red. I'll link to those in the description box. I'm adding water to my magenta to get it to a nice consistency, like half and half. And I like to lay down 2 layers while it's still wet. You'll want to label every swatch you mix, so have your fine pigment liner ready for that afterward. Okay, next up we're going to add some magenta to this pile of phthalo, also known as cyan, and notice what happens. It sort of turns into a blue. So just to test the difference, I'm going to lay down some ultramarine blue next to it to compare. Mixing magenta and phthalo in varying amounts will give you a lovely range of very vibrant purples. Now here's what happens with phthalo and Winsor Red mixed together. Doesn't it look a lot like this pre-made indigo by Winsor & Newton? And remember that anytime you're swatching colors, you're going to want to label what you put in it. Otherwise, it's like making an improvised recipe that you can't repeat. You'll be glad you made notes. Okay, now is a great time to get your space ready for a brush drawing lesson. But first, a word about beginners and paints. You can use a tube paint or something that you already have in a cake. But I also suggest if you're a beginner to stay monochromatic for this. Don't confuse yourself with too many colors just yet. So grab your brush, grab your paint, your paper, your water, and a blotting cloth, and let's get started. Okay, you should have your pigment, round brush, a fresh sheet of paper, a clean blotting cloth, and rinse water. We are going to draw without guiding lines. Let's just try to put our marks in straight lines and have a nice border of space around the edges. To begin, just watch how I do these first 2 brush prints. Do not rest your palm on your paper, but instead you can use your pinky to stabilize. Now I'll let you see from the side angle. The end of the stick of the brush, which is off screen, leads the brush print. Do you see how I have the brush slightly angled away from me? Now you try the upstroke 2 times. I'll wait a few seconds before I show you the next one. Okay, ready? Our next stroke in this sequence will be the right stroke. Again, just watch as I do this one first a couple of times. The stick of the brush leads to your right slightly, having the point of the mark on the left side. Like I've done here, you can stack one right stroke on top of another. Can you do it without looking at my paper? Next, we're going to do a downstroke. You can see clearly here that the stick of the brush is slightly angled toward me, leading the downward motion. I'll show you here from this side again. Now for the left stroke. If you're right-handed like me, this will be your blind stroke, which means your hand might be covering your print as you put it down. But don't worry, just practice this stroke with more patience. I'll show you what it looks like from the side again here. The end of your brush is slightly angled left. I'm doing 2 sets of this one to get some extra practice in my blind spot. Next, you guessed it, 2 more upstrokes. And here's the side view again. All right, for the second row of brush prints, we're pretty much going to mirror image the top row. So first we'll lay down a downstroke, followed by another downstroke. And from the side view, it's this action. Then we'll lay down 2 left strokes, one on top of the other. If you forgot, here's the close-up. Okay, 2 upstrokes to mirror image the ones above it. Keep your spacing in mind. I'll show you what it looks like from the side again here. And 2 right strokes, stacked one on top of the other. Here's the brush action. I like to practice my blind stroke more often, which will be 2 left strokes stacked one on another, and we'll end with 2 down strokes side by side. At this point, it might be a good idea for absolute beginners to stop. If your layout and strokes do not look exactly like mine, that's quite all right. You're still learning. With time and consistent practice, this will become second nature to you. In fact, if you want to work just this part of the video for several practice times until you move on, that's great. For those who are ready to progress, let's start a new line, and I want you to watch and visualize my movements and the pattern I create as I talk it through. Downstroke, 45 degrees, and even more slanted. Downstroke, 45 degrees, and one at an even steeper angle. Now, I showed you that pattern twice. Can you remember what I did and lay the work on your paper without looking at mine? I'll give you some time. Go ahead. How do you do? Here it is again, if you can follow along. Downstroke, 45 degrees, even more slanted stroke. Next, I'm going to flip the direction of these strokes the opposite way. Same sequence though. Upstroke, 45 degrees, and an almost right stroke. We'll end with 1 upstroke on this line, keeping a nice margin. And next, we're just going to mirror image this pattern again with the row underneath. Now, I decided to do a 4th in this same directional pattern, but you can do the mirror image with downward strokes here to keep more symmetry. And we'll end this line with a downstroke. Now on this next line, I want you to feel comfortable enough to come up with your own pattern. It can be as simple as mine or something more complicated. Remember to keep good spacing and a clean margin with whatever you choose. If you mess up, that's okay. Just move on. This is practice. Thankfully, paper grows on trees, so you will have many more chances to make better marks and better designs as you progress. once you're getting to know these strokes, you'll be very comfortable sketching in the field, natural objects, anything you want to do from observation in your home or otherwise. This allows you so much brush control. Okay, we're finished here. Way to go for sticking with it and doing your best. Always, always sign and date your work. Write it or have your instructor discreetly put it on the bottom of the page. This will help you track your own progress over time. Don't worry about how your practice page looks compared to others. Sometimes in art, you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Keep trying and give your personal best effort. It was fun painting with you today. Now it's time to properly clean that brush and store your materials. If it's your first time doing that, click this short tutorial on how to care for your brush. And see you next time.